Okay guys, this is your chicken questions answered. Now, I don't know if I'm going to have time to answer all of these. This video may get too long. There may be some repeat questions in here. And to some of these questions, there is no real right and wrong, black or white answer. So I'm going to just start. I'm just going to do them in the order that they were asked. And the first one says, this person's moving out to a place where they're going to get their garden and their coop set up. And the first question is, what is the smallest size coop/run you would start with having the intention to expand? Well, that kind of depends on how large the birds are that you're going to get, because obviously bantam breeds don't take up as much space as a big old Brahma, and how much you're going to expand. Let me tell you, chicken math is a real thing. It can get away from you. Now, excuse my glasses. These are my computer glasses. I couldn't read these if I didn't have these on. I've had the other ones I had to keep going like this, you know, all the time to read. But so sorry if they look different. Okay, so this is in a fairly hot climate, North Texas, South Oklahoma, and you know who you are. Smallest coop run, I wouldn't think of smallest you can get away with. First, let's don't think of smallest you can get away with. Let me do this in square feet per bird. If you think you have a number in your head about how many you're going to start with, and then how many you might want to expand to, let's just say, let's do square feet per bird inside the coop itself. Now, coop, I'm just talking about the building, not the coop plus the run, just the building. You will see numbers talking about 2 square feet. That is a commercial number. Scratch that. You will see 4 square feet for each chicken. I still think that's a little tight, especially if you're going to have any large breeds. My rule of thumb always has been 5 per bird, 5 square feet. In my first original coop, it was 8 by 8. And I had 10 hens and 1 rooster. So that's 11 birds. According to the 4 square feet rule, I could have had 16 in there. I never had more than 11. And that was always adequate room. I always want to keep fewer birds in a space than I feel like I'm able to, because the more room they have, the less moisture builds up, the healthier the bird is going to be. And you've got to pay attention to ventilation, of course. You've got to have adequate ventilation. I've got a video on the biggest mistakes people make when building their chicken coops, and that might be something to check on. And usually the biggest mistake is not enough room and not enough ventilation. Now, in the run, if you're not going to free range them, usually people talk about 10 square feet per bird inside the pen itself, and that's probably fine. So it depends on how much you're going to expand to. Take the number you're going to have originally, take the number you think you might expand to, multiply that by how many square feet per bird. I would say minimum 5. I've got a lot more than that in this barn. A lot more square feet per animal in that barn, in each pen. But and go by that, okay? And that's floor space. That's floor space. Now, in a warm climate like Texas and Oklahoma, you know, where you have a lot of heat and humidity, what breeds would do best for a first timer? You know, I think pretty much any smaller bodied breed would be better. any breed that doesn't have feathered legs is going to do better in the heat. You would think a white breed would do better, but that's not necessarily true. If it's a white leghorn, that's a very light bodied bird. It's a very prolific egg layer. In that they do fine. They have these large single combs, and that is their temperature regulator. And they do great in hot climates. There's also a brown leghorn that has a beautiful partridge-like pattern. Those would be excellent. Now sometimes they're a little flighty. If you can still get those birds from a breeder, not a hatchery, and they tend to be less flighty. But I would say for a first timer, start with some fun breeds. Start with some, now this is not a true breed, start with an Easter egger. Easter eggers are generally light-bodied birds. They're a little silly. They're quite silly, but they don't have feathered legs. They do really well in the heat. I would say those are excellent birds. Barred Plymouth Rocks do rather well in the heat. And they're excellent egg layers. In fact, all mine laid egg for egg as well as any of the Rhode Island Red types that I ever had. But, you know, there's, I think probably, now, hatchery Easter egger males are, their temperaments are really dicey. You may have a nice one, you may have a mean one. I've heard of more mean ones than good ones. But there's a lot of just general breeds that are good. Bantam breeds are wonderful. But you know, I mean, I don't know. It just kind of depends on, and you know, you're going to find things that you like and things you don't like. So your taste is going to evolve over time. And what I really like, you may not like. And different hatcheries, their particular variety of a certain breed may not be as good as others, and I just haven't bought from all the hatcheries. I tell you what, I bought from Ideal Poultry in Texas, and they were the worst for reproductive malfunction. All my original flock was from Ideal. Probably the largest poultry place besides Murray McMurray in the country, and I would prefer Murray McMurray over Ideal just about any day, because one of my longest lived ever daughters of hatchery stock was my Amanda. She lived to be 13, Barred Plymouth Rock. So Barred Rocks generally have pretty sweet temperaments with people. They can be a little bossy in the flock, but so can any bird, because there is a pecking order. Okay, so I can't spend too much time there, but resources for knowledge would be welcome. Books are great. Keeping Chickens for Dummies by Rob Ludlow is a good book. What is it? Was it Raising Chickens? By any book by Gail Damerow, D-A-M-E-R-O-W, is an excellent book. There's quite a few books on the market that are pretty good. You just want to make sure the book is not dedicated to commercial enterprises. That, you know, should you ask a neighbor once you get there? I wouldn't do that. Because your neighbors are just as liable to tell you bad information as good information. And a lot of people have wrong ideas. Even my father, who grew up on a farm, had some really wrong ideas about chickens. So, I would say stick with the experts for the information, and your experience will help you learn other things later on. But neighbors, they may be just dumb as a box of rocks, and, you know, they'll tell you all kinds of stuff. In fact, I know from my years on the chicken forum that you can ask a question and people who don't even have chickens will chime in to give you the answer. They'll tell you that they know, oh, but I don't have chickens. It's like, well, why did you answer the question? Oh, okay. So I hope that helped a little bit. Okay, my sweet friend Heather in Michigan. I'm so happy to see you posting. You have a lot of questions, okay? She has a question about selling eggs. egg prices in the grocery store quadrupled. She's invested in cartons, custom stamps, stickers. First question is to wash or keep unwashed. Okay. Well, let me tell you. The first thing you need to know is you need to know your local regulations, because here in my state, if you sell eggs out anywhere, you've got to have a handling license. I only sold eggs to my neighbors. And yeah, I had labels that I printed out and I put them on the cartons. I only sold to my local close by neighbors generally. But if you go sell at a flea market or you advertise anything, the authorities will come get you if you haven't followed their local regulations. And we have to have a handling license, which is ridiculous. But you need to check your local regulations to see what they're going to do to you if you go into a business and you haven't actually followed their rules. And you know, your state's kind of big for rules. Washing eggs. I have never washed my eggs ever, unless they have poop on them or something. And that's rare because I keep my nest boxes clean. I do have a girl who insists on laying on the floor. She drives me crazy. And sometimes very old hens might, when they lay their egg, they may also squeeze out a clump of poop with the egg. And, you know, you'd have to wash those. And the way you wash those eggs is you have to run them under water warmer than the egg so it doesn't suck that back into the egg, because eggs are porous. And of course they're laid with a bloom on them with a little coating. When a fresh egg you've seen in the nest, people that they come out and they're wet and they dry off. That's called the bloom, and it kind of goes into those pores and kind of protects the egg from bacteria. But I've never washed my eggs. Even when I sold them, I never washed my eggs. I never have. Now, they do have commercial egg washes. You can get those from, say, Little Giant, places that sell incubators. They will sell you commercial egg washes. If you're going to sell them commercially, it might be an idea just to do that. If you're going to wash them at all, I would just do that, because, you know, people say, well, you know, if they get sick, even though they got sick for something else, they might want to come back and blame you. And you want to be sure you can tell them, sorry, I used a commercial egg wash. There's no bacteria on this egg. If you got sick, it has something to do something besides my eggs. So you have to kind of be careful when you're dealing with people, dealing with the public on those things, because they always want to look for somebody to blame, as we both know. Let's see, pricing. Well, that's kind of up to you. You're going to have, if you free range your birds outside of a pen, you're going to have free range, possibly organic eggs, whatever you feed them. I don't know exactly what your feed is. Free range organic eggs. Look at what they're selling for in the grocery stores. They're probably, even those, your birds are probably healthier than those birds that produce those eggs. However, you might want to think about what they're selling for in the store and maybe undercut the grocery store just by a teeny little bit, and then you can justify your prices. We were told your eggs are too expensive. It's like, wait a minute, they're less than the organic free range eggs in the store by $1, and you're telling me my eggs are too expensive? They just wanted Walmart prices. You know, people that buy quilts, they want the same thing. They want you to sell them a handmade original quilt for a Walmart price, and that ain't happening. So it's kind of up to you, the pricing. I would go by, see what a comparable egg in the grocery store is selling for, and decide if you want to undercut that by a little bit or if you don't. That's really kind of up to you. So she also wanted advice on hatching out her own. Last year she tried with a broody hen and a chick went missing. Should you invest in a small brooder? Should you separate a broody hen from the flock? If so, where do I keep her? That's a lot of broody hen questions. Yes, I would always separate a hen out from the flock. The only time I didn't do that is with the Belgian Danvers, and that's because the roosters help raise the babies. With my large fowl birds, I've never been able to have them hatch in a flock. They always had a separate pen, a separate coop, so that the mama could go out with the baby, and I had a predator-proof coop with every little hole covered around the bottom so a little tiny day-old chick couldn't squeeze through. I have a special little coop for that, actually. I also have a barn pen now that's kind of vacant, so I could do that. But yes, you really do need to have her separated so she can hatch out her own without interference from other birds or predators, and make sure it's predator proof. How you do that requires a lot more detail than we can go into with these questions right here. Okay, Karin, how do you blend in your chicks with your bigger birds as far as feeding them? I know they have different diets. We have 6-week-old chicks. I know they need to stay separated for a while, but chicks need to be on chick feed for 18 weeks or so per package instructions. Okay. You can do it one of two ways. You can fudge on that 18 weeks and put them on regular adult layer feed when they get to be, say, 16 weeks old. Hatchery stock and bantams tend to lay a little earlier if they're just hatchery bantams. Now, breeder stock lays later. So, but you can still fudge on that a little bit. It's not going to kill them to get some calcium in that layer feed a little bit early. It's not going to hurt anything. I've done that a few times. A couple of bugs around here. It was pouring rain. I'm trying to take advantage of it not raining for a few minutes here, so that's why I'm kind of talking fast. But you know, you can fudge on that. It's not going to kill them. If you have medicated feed, which I don't feed, the adults can eat that. Actually, the chicks, if it's non-medicated, the adults can eat that. So you could mix that up. You can mix them some layer pellets with their chick feed. You could actually get another kind of feed, what they call, oh my goodness, what is that? It's a Tractor Supply sells it. It's sold by Purina, although I don't like Purina feeds. I can't stand the smell of them. It smells like chemicals to me. But they sell the general flock raiser. It's called Flock Raiser. But there are other kinds of generic feeds for feeding mixed flocks. And they can be 18%, 20% protein, and they can be used for all ages. And that's one choice, just for a few weeks. You could do that. But you can start feeding them a little bit earlier. 6-week-old chicks, you got quite a while before they can go in with the adults. They need to be close to the size of an adult, really, so they don't get picked on unless you have a lot of room for them to get away from them. But yeah, that's kind of what I do when they get. I keep them on chick starter up until they're at least 16 weeks old, and mine's non-medicated. And it's just the medication is just amprolium. It's just concentrated amprolium, supposed to be for fighting coccidiosis. Doesn't do a great job because it's not very much in there. It doesn't hurt for layer hens to eat that either for a brief period of time. So you can mix it. You can start them on layer a little bit sooner. Now, when they're used to eating chick crumbles, it might be hard for them to eat the pellets. If you get the large pellets, I use mini pellets, so they're little tiny pellets. So that's not a problem for chicks to eat. But you can fudge on that. And that's kind of what I do. When they get to be close to the age, I start mixing. I can either make the adults eat the chick feed or the chicks eat the adult feed for at least 2 or 3 weeks there. It's not going to kill anybody to fudge a little bit. Okay. Brenda, do you have any tips for keeping snakes from eating eggs under a broody hen/duck? It seems to incubate them halfway and the black snakes come in and eat the eggs. Well, no. You know why? Because I've never had snakes in my coop. The only thing you can do is keep the snakes out. I mean, now I realize when the pop doors open, snakes can come in. Now, I've never had a snake in my coop, ever. The only time I had a snake is when one of the girls caught a small snake and she took it inside and, trying to keep it away from everybody else. But I've never had snakes in the coop eating eggs. Well, do you have cats? Do you have guineas? Because they will kill snakes. Or harass them so they want to leave. I really don't know. Every hole in my coop is covered with hardware cloth. So far I've just never had that happen. So I would not really be a good one to answer that question. I have a cat, but of course, he's in the house a lot of the time. I had guineas. They would hassle snakes. Usually my girls eat snakes, but of course they won't eat the big ones. I've had plenty of rat snakes around here, but they've never gone into the coops, which is interesting. So I'm sorry I can't be more help with that one. Best chickens for eggs versus meat. Also chickens that do best in heat and humidity. Okay, let's do the heat and humidity first. Any chicken that's smaller bodied and doesn't have feathered legs, doesn't have dense fluff, I would say, you know, Easter eggers do really great in heat humidity. Any pea-combed birds do great usually. I would say one thing you don't want to get is a Delaware. And yes, it's a white bird, but you know why they don't do well in heat and humidity? Is because they were originally created as a meat bird. Their musculature is very dense. If you pick up a Delaware, it might be a big bird, but it's, you know, tight feathered, and you pick it up and it just feels heavy. It feels a lot heavier than you think. And it's because the muscles is so dense. They were bred as a meat bird. And so they suffer in heat and humidity more than any of my other birds. My barred rocks don't have a problem too much with that. Barred rocks do really well. My Brahmas don't, they start to pant when it's 70 degrees outside in the barn. They pant. So I would say keep away from the big, huge birds. Keep away from the birds that have a lot of heavy feathering, a lot of feathered legs and things like that if you're in the heat, hot place. Chickens for eggs versus meat. Any layer breed, light-bodied layer breed, brown leghorn is a really good one for eggs. My barred Plymouth Rocks, a dual-purpose bird, is perfect for eggs. They were some of the best layers I ever had. When I had all the hatchery stock, and I had they were all breeding together, and, I had the hatchery barred rocks, hatchery Rhode Island Reds, which are production reds, and then I had hatchery Wyandottes, worst ever for dying on you from reproductive stuff. But they all did really well in the heat. All of those did well in the heat. They were all really good layers. The barred rocks matched the Rhode Island Reds, egg for egg. I've heard that one of the very best chickens for egg production is the Australorp, the black Australorp. And they have blue Australorps too now. Those actually sort of held a record for the most eggs laid in a year. So I would think that those would be an excellent laying breed. As for, there's all kinds. They're just any of the egg-laying type breeds or the dual-purpose breeds would be just fine for eggs. Meat birds, you'd want a faster-growing bird like the Brahmas. You'd think they'd be good for meat birds, but they really aren't because they take 2 years to really mature into their full weight. They put on a lot of frame first, then they put on their bulk. So they're not the best meat bird. They take the breeder quality ones. They're very slow to mature. But I'm not sure I can really just give you a list of those. I would just say any of the lighter bodied birds that, they tend to be a little flighty. But the black Australorp, the barred Plymouth Rock, or any of the production reds, the red sex links or the cherry eggers. They had the trade names of cherry egger or all kinds of the golden comets, golden sex links. The hybrids are great egg layers. They're not a breed though. They're a hybrid. They're not a true breed. Well, of course, neither is an Easter egger. My Easter egger, hatchery Easter egger girls are laying like gangbusters. Of course, they're only a year old. But I definitely wouldn't lose them for meat. They're just not that big. Americanas, they're not that big. So anyway, I don't know if that even answers your question, but yeah, if you want chickens good for heat and humidity, the bigger combs are good heat regulators. As long as you don't have, sub-zero temperatures, you're not gonna get a lot of frostbite or any of that kind of stuff. Yeah, just stay away from the Delawares because heat and humidity, they don't do that well in those. They suffer more than you would think. Okay. How long does it take your older flock to get used to the new ladies without fighting? Depends on how the new ladies are. Well, really, I don't think there's a way to even give you a number or a time frame. They're always going to be the new ladies. they may find their way into the flock and not get picked on as much, but they're always going to be at the bottom of the pecking order. Probably. So, you know, there's no way to give you a time frame. It just takes as long as it takes, and they may never. Hector's girl, Jill, relentlessly beats up on the older Zara and Athena, who are Atlas's daughters. They're older than she is. But they were always in that group, and she beats the daylights out of them. She's always going to do that because she is in charge in there. And the pecking order is always going to be the pecking order. That's the way it's going to be. So they're always probably going to have their little tiffs and tussles even after a long time. I mean, pecking order is a real thing. Okay, now here's one that I knew a little bit about this subject, and I'm not sure if this is where you're going with this. I would like tips on hens with runny yellow butts and / yeast infection. First, are you sure it's a yeast infection? Are you sure that yellow is not egg yolk? How many do you have? If you got a whole rash of them, you know, the first thing I thought when you said that was vent gleet. Vent gleet, VENT GLEET, vent gleet. It's a thrush infection. You know, little poop on the feathers is not that big a deal. It's always, I have hens that I say that they have Velcro fluff that everything sticks to. If it runs down their fluff, half of it sticks in the fluff. They have Velcro fluff. Some of them have Teflon fluff where everything rolls off, and I think that has to do with how they distribute their oil through the feathers with the oil gland. I think if they don't distribute on the rear end, it sticks. And you know, that's not, it's always going to be dirty. Drusilla, her behind's always dirty. She can't reach back there to get it, for one thing, because she's crippled. But vent gleet is kind of, it says something's not going well with their digestion. And I've always known that you can treat vent gleet topically by putting on something like Monostat 7, you know, or something like that you would put on fungal infections of the feet. It's just antifungal cream. You can treat that. You can treat them with that. But it's a form of thrush, and I knew a little bit about it. I mean, the yeast is called Candida albicans, albicans, ALBICANS. I knew that, okay? I've never had vent gleet in the flock. I've never had to deal with that. Green and yellow poop from ailing birds, yes, but that's not vent gleet. Now, you know, if you have a whitish discharge and it smells, it's really smelly, like fermenting yeast, you've got vent gleet in there. And it can be crusty and all. The vent can be irritated and red. The vent is the poop hole. And of course, you probably know that. You know that. But they can have varying degrees of it. But, I mean, it's not contagious per se. It can actually occur in roosters too, because it has to do with their digestive tract and the pH and everything being out of balance. And I printed out something because I wanted to be sure I told you some more stuff, because really that was pretty much all I knew about it, because I've never actually had to deal with it. But I knew it was a thrush kind of infection, and you can treat it with something like Monostat 7. But beyond that, I wasn't quite sure what caused it. So let me read you some of the things. Some of the causes can be ingesting moldy or spoiled food, especially corn with aflatoxins, contaminated water, unsanitary conditions. If they have sour crop, everything's out of balance. And it says if there's an imbalance in the digestive system, like their normal gut bacteria is not good, like if they've been on antibiotics or something for some reason, that will mess up their gut bacteria. And of course the rooster can get it from mating with an infected hen, I guess, even though technically that's not, it said it's not contagious, and I've always known it not to be contagious per se, but how could he get it mating with an infected hen? So I'm not sure how that works if it's not contagious, but that's what it said. But the symptoms can vary. You know, you get the white discharge, that's classic, and it smells bad. It smells fermenty, and you can have missing or soil feathers around the vent, which you mentioned. They can, you know, sour crop, can contribute to that. It's a gassy crop, you know. They can have less appetite. They can lose weight. They can have white patches or lesions. Okay, sorry, stop recording. And they can even have bloated abdomen. Okay, it's kind of advanced. But okay, here's how you treat it. Okay. Besides the monostat, the antifungal cream that you can put on the vent area, you can get a nystatin, called nystatin liquid suspension. You can get it from your vet, and you have to give it orally every day for 7 to 10 days. And of course, you know, those things that are like athlete's foot creams, you can put those around the vent twice a day for 2 weeks. Here's something I used to actually do when I was trying to help a bird get back on its feet. Float garlic cloves in the water. I used to, first rooster I ever had came to me with a fungal infection of the comb and wattles. And I gave him water, and I have a garlic clove slightly crushed and float in his water. He was ingesting that. So it says during treatment, avoid feeding your chickens foods with a high water content, because that can cause watery stools, and that can make, you know, all the water, you know, drip down and cause burn. It can irritate their skin, and when you've got irritated skin, you can have a fly strike where the flies lay their eggs in there, and you don't want that because they can get into their body cavity and kill them. So here's how you prevent it, and here's maybe what you should do to also treat it. It says acidify the digestive tract and crop by adding a tablespoon of apple cider vinegar with the mother. You know, the organic kind that's got the sediment in the bottom. Shake that up so it's all in the suspension. And a tablespoon to each gallon of drinking water. Now, don't put it in a metal pan because you don't want to put the acid into metal. Make sure it's a plastic water. You can do that, you know, for a week or so. You can add probiotics to their diet, and one way to do that is just get just one of those big tubs of the plain, unsweetened yogurt. Great Value has just a plain, simple brand. Don't have to be Greek yogurt. Although my husband had to get Greek last time. I said, boy, the chickens are coming up in the world to get Greek yogurt because they didn't have the other kind. But you can give them just a tablespoon of yogurt. Most of them love yogurt. Just the plain, not with sugar. Don't put anything with sugar in it. And of course, you clean your waters regularly. You keep the run clean and dry, and you know the usual maintenance stuff. Never feed your chickens kitchen scraps, especially during this time, because you don't know what it's doing to their digestion. I don't normally feed my chickens kitchen scraps. And of course, you know, keep the food dry and don't feed them moldy feed is a biggie. So I hope that helps. I knew a little bit about it, but I didn't know a lot about it. That's why I looked up some more facts for you. And I don't know if what your hens have is vent glee or not, but all those suggestions are not bad. Anyway, just in case. Not going to hurt them. Can't hurt my help. Okay. The last question I took on this, and this I did an entire video dedicated to this subject, and I think I will link it up here. Do you have any experience with aggressive roosters? Any advice on how to deal with them? Lots of conflicting information. For example, ways of calming a mean rooster. Okay, you might not like my answer on this one. And I have an entire, it's about 16 to 20 minute video on rooster aggression. Please watch that. I go into all kinds of detail and all kinds of situations. But temperament in a rooster is, in general, a heritable trait, meaning it is inherited. Just like eye color, leg color, plumage color, it's an inherited trait. If you breed from an aggressive rooster, a human aggressive rooster, you're probably going to get more of the same. Nothing's 100% because it's an animal with a brain like, this big. So nothing is a given, but to mitigate the risk of getting more, don't just say, well, I'm just going to breed, I'll just keep one of his sons and I'll get rid of him. Well, that may not help. You may just be going back into the fire with that one because he's from the same dad, same genetics. I have not had an aggressive rooster in about 15 years. That's because the last one I had became Stu, and I did not breed from him. I have only bred from roosters who have good temperament, and they've passed on their good temperament to their sons, grandsons, great-grandsons. That includes my Delawares, my Barred Rocks, my Brahmas. They've been wonderful. You can't calm down a mean rooster. Now, is the rooster mean because he's hormonal and he's just coming into his own as far as hormones? Is he young? Is he like, 12 to 15 weeks old and he's not really hormonal yet? If that's the case, you might have a chance, as long as he's not flogging. If he's hitting you with his feet, in my opinion, it's all over. If he's just biting, you can usually use a little reversion therapy. Look at my video. I'll tell you how to do that. Because that's usually boundary testing. When they're really young and they kind of push you a little bit. But once they start flogging, I've never been able to bring one back from that. Now, there are other situations where a rooster can turn mean late in life if a situation has come into his life where something has changed. His brain, something's clicked off in his brain, and he becomes super aggressive. That is more rare. Usually temperament's heritable, and if they're still decent by the time that they're 25 weeks old, 30 weeks old, and they're still they're not attacking you, they're probably not going to, unless something changes to frighten them, predator pressure, something has changed. But that video has so much in there. I don't try to calm down mean roosters. I might give them one chance. And if they flog me twice, they're gone. And I don't mean sell them to somebody else and make it somebody else's problem, unless you're saying, unless you're giving it away and you're saying, look, this guy attacks us. If you're going to put him out on range with your hands, he's fine. A rooster does not have to be mean in order to take care of his hens and be really aggressive to predators. He doesn't have to be mean to humans. He should know where his food and water comes from. I have found that the most intelligent roosters are the least likely to be aggressive to you. They get it. They know who they're supposed to respect. So I've had a long run of very intelligent roosters. I do have a little Bantam rooster who's 11 years old. He's a breed that is not real smart. Their males are pretty dumb, and he's really dumb. And he's flogged me in the past. He hasn't done it a long time because he's 11 and he's not going to bother. He's just too old to care. He will, however, threaten me, and if he sees me come with a camera, he'll threaten me. So, but if he did, he weighs what, 20 ounces, and I'm not even going to feel, it's like a puff of air. So I've never worried about that breed because they're so tiny, they don't do any damage. I mean, unless you bend over and they get you in the face. But he's just not done anything, and he's 11 years old, and he's a jerk, but he's my little jerk. It's the big ones that you cannot have attack you. The 12-pounders, the 14-pounders. You don't want one of those to come at you from the back. So please, Kim, if you would, look at that video. That will tell you in so much more detail than I can. But I don't think there is a way to calm a mean rooster. You might make him leery of you for a while, but it doesn't change his character. It is only going to make him wait for a better opportunity to get you. That's my experience with it. So I know I kind of rushed through this, and I'm sorry if I didn't answer exactly everything you wanted me to answer, but this video could be 2 hours long if I kept going. And I'm not sure there's much more I could say. But yeah, as far as selling eggs, please look into your local ordinances. You might find out that there are some, and you can't legally do it unless you take some sort of a class and get a license or whatever. You can sell to neighbors and be on the down low. And I still had labels for my egg cartons when I did that. But I haven't done that in many years because we've been eating our own eggs, and most of my chickens are very old, except for the youngsters, and I eat all those eggs or feed them back to them. Now let me see if there's anything else I've got in here. I don't know. Anyway, if you've got want any clarification, ask below. As far as best chickens from eggs versus meat, I mean, I can't just give you a list because, you know, there are thousands of chicken breeds. And I would just say the smaller bodied, more egg-laying types, the least rare breeds, the hybrid layers are probably the very best for eggs. They also tend to have the reproductive malfunctions more, but they are the best egg layers. And they're the best for laying early and laying very large eggs. Other than that, the barred Plymouth Rocks, excellent. The Easter eggers, my Easter eggers are laying some good size eggs now at a year old, and they are laying very consistently. I usually get an egg from every one of them just about every day. And I have, 6 Easter egger girls, and even my 2 Bantam Cochins that are not broody lay pretty well. They don't each lay every day, but they lay pretty well. But of course their eggs are that big, little tiny eggs. But yeah, the heat and humidity, don't assume because chicken is white that it's good in heat and humidity, because Delaware definitely is not. Their lineage is meat bird. They were bred before they were bred to be meat birds before the Cornish cross. Cornish cross, those are meat birds. Those are the traditional grocery store meat birds. Any bird that puts on weight fairly fast, any dual purpose bird is going to be a pretty fair meat bird, but barred rocks can be both. Kind of depends on how you feed. If you want to be meat bird rather than layer, you may have to feed them a little bit differently. So anyway, in the parameters of this one video, in the case of keeping it a little bit shorter than an hour, I'm going to have to stop here. But I hope it's answered some of the questions. And congratulations on getting your red-tailed French black Morans, Heather. Those are pretty birds, and they have some really pretty eggs. But you might find interesting that some people are freaked out by eggs that aren't white. My former daughter-in-law would not eat a brown egg. I know, she's dumb. She wouldn't eat a brown egg. She only eat white eggs. I don't know why. It's like there is no difference inside an egg. Whatever the difference in an egg has to do with what the chicken ate. And the color of the shell has to do with the breed of the chicken. So anyway, no counting for taste. So you might want to, tell people that your eggs are going to be colored eggs before you freak them out. But anyway, I hope this helps, and I'm going to get in because I think we're about to rev up the rain again. So catch y'all later. Bye.